This video shows how to update the firmware on the AlphaPix controllers. And in this particular case, we have the AlphaPix 16, but the AlphaPix 4 also is updated in the same method. What we need to do is first apply power. In this particular case, we need to apply power to the 1 through 8 inputs for the power, and we also need to hook it to the network. See our other videos for information about how to connect the AlphaPix controllers to your network and do additional testing to determine that they're connected to your PC. So at this point, we assume that you have connected the controller to your network, to your PC. It is functional, and you'll be able to bring up a web browser. So let's go ahead and power the controller up. What we will notice is that the firmware version is shown when it first boots up, and we can also see that it has an IP address and it is static, and it is 192.168.0.50, which is the default IP address. So what we're going to do is go ahead and load up a web browser, and we're going to go to that address, 192.168.0.50. And what we're going to do is scroll down here at the bottom, and we'll be able to see the version of the firmware. In this particular case, you can see that it is 1.01 and the date that it was released. So we're going to, if we need to, click here for update. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up a new tab, go to this page, and you can see that the releases of the firmware are shown here. You do need to simply download these to your PC, put them on a location that's appropriate and accessible to your PC. Now, because of your particular configuration, you may need to unhook this network connection to access the controller while programming it if your computer is not able to access the internet and the controller at the same time. So it may need to go ahead, download this file, save it to your PC, then connect the controller. Your situation may vary. So we've gone ahead and downloaded these items. They are located here on my drive, and here you can see there's 16 and 4 firmware. Be sure to not load the particular firmware on the different controllers. So we're going to go ahead, go back to our controller. We're going to click the update button. It's going to then say update the firmware. It is restarting. If you should, as the term is, brick the controller, there are instructions on our website on how to manually recover this controller if this process has been updated incorrectly or interrupted. So at this moment, the controller is waiting on the firmware to be sent to it, and the software, in this case the web browser, is timing out, waiting for the controller to reboot. So once it goes to the next screen, we'll go ahead and select the file. Here we're going to go ahead and select the AlphaPix 16. Click open. Now your screen may vary depending upon the particular version of firmware, as it might change over time. Go ahead and click the update button. Down here we can see that it was updating and sending the firmware to the unit. You can see that right at the bottom down there in the left. You can see that the firmware is updated, and now the controller is rebooting, and it has the new version of the firmware installed on it. Now, this application is assuming that the controller is restarting and that it might take a while, but the controller is already restarted, so we'll just go ahead and go right to the controller. And if we scroll down here, we can see that the firmware version has changed. That's all there is to updating your firmware. Should you have suggestions to corrections or improvements to the AlphaPix protocol line, go ahead and send them to sales@HolidayCoro.com with AlphaPix corrections or changes in the subject line, and we'll be happy to incorporate them into new versions where possible.